So another person coming on the stage and talking about diversity. I'm sure everyone's kind of heard this story so many times and seen the posters everywhere around diversity. But to me, diversity isn't just a word. What does it actually mean when we talk about diversity? What is diversity? And I get asked this question all the time. And, you know, there's no simple answer to explain it. As you can see, there's so many different words there that really explain what it is. It's just too much to try and define. But there's one simple way of explaining it that I think always resonated with me. And that is, diversity is like being invited to a party. Everybody loves going to a party. But inclusion is having somebody come up and asking you to dance. But you just can't have diversity and inclusion. You've got to have equality. Equality is when you're invited to be part of the planning committee. That's what the game changer is all about when we talk about diversity. Is those three elements together: diversity, inclusion, and equality. And I think at the moment, you cannot open a newspaper without seeing some headline about gender pay gap, men getting paid more than women. There's no ethnic minorities in organizations on the top of the boards. There's more CEOs called John in the FTSE 100 than there are women or ethnic minorities. This is what we're talking about when we start talking about diversity, but also inclusion. And we can talk and talk and talk until the cows come home. But it's what are we actually doing about it as society? What are we actually going to do to start to move that dial forward? For me, I've been in recruitment now for the past 18 years. And in those 18 years, I've seen so many things happen. And I'll tell you a story about how I got into recruitment. I think like most of you here who are in recruitment, you never actually decide to choose, I'm going to become a recruiter. You somehow fall into it, or somebody drags you into it, as in my case. So my best friend was making a lot of money, and I was very skint. I'd come out of university, I had so many student debts, and I was like, right, how am I going to pay all these debts? And my friend said, you should get into recruitment. I was like, what is that? You know, so she said, oh, you know, it's brilliant. You talk to people all day, you find all these amazing people, you find them jobs, you know, and you make loads and loads of money. I went, right, brilliant, I want some of this. How do I get some of this? So I put in a good word for you. And I remember turning up for an interview. I'm from Yorkshire. You probably can't tell from the accent, but I'm from Yorkshire lass. And I turned up for my first ever job interview in recruitment. And this was a fantastic search and selection company. And did the interview. I did well. They said, okay, we'll call you back. I got a phone call the next day. You've got the job. Brilliant. I was going to be rich. I was going to make loads and loads of money. I was very, very excited. I turned up the next week to start my new job. And I have to say it was the biggest wake-up call I've ever been, because I walked into this organization, 120 consultants that worked in this firm. Of the 120, there were only 5 women. Of the 120 and the 5 women, I was the only person of color. So my journey already into the world of recruitment was going to be the biggest challenge I'd ever faced. And I was one of those people, I was like, yeah, I like a challenge. I can do this. You know, clearly I can never, ever go wrong. I can never, ever mess up because they'll always remember me. I stick out like a sore thumb. And that was the biggest learning curve for me because I was in an environment that was not, for me, an inclusive environment at all. People would say loads of racist jokes, but no offense to you, of course, Cynthia. You know, we don't mean you. You know, it's just a joke about so-and-so. No offense to you. And a lot of times I took it, I sat there, you know, what can I do? And I was outnumbered. I was the only person. I had nobody else to kind of, you know, look at on the side and go, God, did you hear that joke? You know, or roll my eyes at. So it was a very, very tough environment. But for somebody who's very resilient, and I knew I had to, you know, keep digging my heel and just go with it. I was very determined I was going to succeed in this environment because my best friend had found this job for me. I couldn't let her down. So I lasted 3 years in this very male-dominated environment where I had to struggle and overcome so many challenges every single day. But in a way, those challenges helped to shape the person that I've become today, because they taught me about what I don't want to work in, what kind of environment I would not want to be in, which is an environment that's not supportive or understands our differences or celebrates our differences. It's an environment that I didn't feel they got the best out of me because I wasn't my true self. I always had to toe the line. I couldn't really say what I was thinking because I didn't know how that would be taken. I had to try and conform to be something that I wasn't. I had to try and change a little bit about myself. And I think in a way, I probably lost a little bit about myself because I was in an environment that was not right for me, because they didn't understand me, because there was nobody else like me that was in that environment. And it was very hard. It was very challenging. So I, left eventually and, moved to the bright lights of London, which is the most vibrant city I'd ever been in. And for me, it was fantastic because finally I'd left lovely Yorkshire. I was in London. Everybody was out on the streets. Everybody was represented. People of all walks of lives, all kind of backgrounds, different nationalities, so many different languages that you could hear being spoken in the streets. And when you walked into the offices, all of a sudden it was different. Where did those people go? What happened? Because the only type of people I would see in the companies were the same type of people that I saw when I was back in Yorkshire. This is strange. It's London. There's loads of us. There's loads of people from my kind of background, but why are they not in these environments? Why are they not in these organizations? And that started the process in my head about why is that? Why are we not reflecting our society? Why do our companies not represent the world that we live in? And this is a question that I've always asked myself. And I try to kind of take it back to when I was younger. This is me, the one in the sailor outfit. So I was 8 years old, and for those of you who are trying to calculate how old I was, it's 1985, you do the math. And I was always fascinated by water, and there's this myth about black people can't swim. I can swim. I'm very good at swimming, and I love the water. And from a very young age, my mum struggled to get me out of the bath. And I remember I kept saying, I love sailors. I would always watch these programs and telly, and I was so fascinated by sailors. And I said to my mum, I want to be a sailor. And I'd seen this outfit, this sailor outfit in the shop, and I was like, Mum, I really want this dress for Christmas. And back in those days, you only got, presents twice a year, once on your birthday, once at Christmas. That's how things were. So I had to be very good for the whole year, and it came to Christmas Day, opened my Christmas present, and I got my sailor dress. I was so, so happy because I thought as an 8-year-old, that's it, I'm set for life, I'm now becoming a sailor. My uncle turned around to me and he said, well, that's the only sailor dress you're ever going to wear because women do not belong in the Navy. Women cannot become sailors. And I went, no, they can. And he went, well, how many women sailors do you know? I couldn't answer. As an 8-year-old, I couldn't answer. We had no Google back then. Didn't know how to use a computer because we probably didn't have proper computers. So that stuck in my mind. Why were there no female sailors? And it goes back to being about role models. As young people, we look to our elders, we look to people in businesses, and we want to aspire to become somebody. If you do not see yourself or do not see somebody that's from your kind of background, or women, or somebody of an ethnic minority, or somebody from an LGBT kind of community, or somebody with a disability that you can aspire to be, you can never become that because you cannot visualize it. There's a thing to be said about having positive role models, because that's how we grow up. That's how we aspire to become who we become. So for me, I ended up in recruitment because I didn't know any female sailors. So there went the dream of me becoming a sailor. So one of the things that happened the last couple of weeks that got me thinking about the society and the world that we live in was those 12 kids and their football coach. And I think the whole world was watching. We were all waiting to see what is going to happen with these kids. How are they going to get them out? And the first news we heard was 2 British divers found these kids. Fantastic, brilliant, they've got to bring them out. We all celebrated, but no, it wasn't that easy. This was a very complex mission, rescue mission that they had to undertake. And what it required was different people from different countries who all had different skills. They all had to come together for one common mission, which was to save those kids. You had their football coach was in there teaching these kids to meditate, to help them cope with the environment that they were in. Because they're only 11 and 12. It's probably I couldn't imagine being down in those caves. But you needed to have somebody with that skill in there to help those children. You had to have experts that had the right kind of equipment, that understood how to navigate those caves to get those children out. A lot of them probably didn't speak the same language, they weren't from the same country, but they had to come together as a team. They had a common mission. They had the same shared values. And that got me thinking, why do our organizations not work in that kind of way? Where you have people that have different skills from different kind of backgrounds who probably don't understand each other, or but they're there for the same kind of mission. As businesses, we're there to serve our clients, but we cannot serve our clients if we only give them the same type of people over and over again. Another thing that happened, football. Yes, somebody else talking about football. And I think everyone's talking about it because it's one of the biggest things that's happened in this country in the past few weeks. And it was just to be in the UK during this time was phenomenal. I remember sitting on the tube, I had my England top on. The guy opposite me was wearing his Gareth waistcoat, and we just smiled at each other. There was just this knowing smile, It's a stranger, never met this person before, probably never meet him again. But there was something that brought us all together. There was this hope, togetherness, that there was a team, that somebody decided to think outside the box and do things differently, and challenge the status quo of what we think makes a good football team. This is what we see every single day in our companies of what we think a good candidate is, or what makes the perfect candidate. But Gareth Southgate challenged that. He had the youngest team out on that tournament, probably the most inexperienced in terms of their caps. But what he did was he thought outside the box and thought, with the people that I've got here, they're all from different kind of backgrounds, different walks of lives, have had completely different experiences to get to where they are in their careers. How do I get these people working together, have a common goal, to be able to go out there and win this? And it's that mentality, it's that way of thinking, of bringing people's differences and making them work for you. If we were to translate what we saw on that football pitch into our businesses, into the way that we recruit for our clients, into the way that we go and find talent for our clients, and not always searching for what we think, in our view, is the idea of a perfect candidate. If we were to introduce our clients to different people that they might not have considered, what would that do to their organization? If we challenged our hiring managers to say, I'm not giving you the same type of people from the same kind of universities with the same kind of backgrounds who were all mates when they were back in the day, I'm going to give you something different. And we started to challenge it. What would happen? What would their organization start to look like? And that is the power of diversity. Picture says 1,000 words. 1,000 words. I always remember when Justin Trudeau came and wheeled out his incredibly diverse cabinet. I was so proud. I'm not Canadian. I've never been to Canada. But I was so proud because here's a leader who was thinking outside the box, who wanted to represent society in its entirety. Because you cannot, in this day and age, have a table that looks like that does not reflect the society that we live in, and expect to wheel a deal like Brexit. effectively. I don't even know if half those people are still in power because they change every single week. Somebody else is resigning. But if we have people in power who do not reflect our society, how are they going to serve us? How are they going to support us? Let's move it away from the political arena. Let's take it to the boardroom. If you walked into a boardroom and you saw the bottom picture, all sat around the table, you would think that's fine. That's how boardrooms look. Imagine walking into a boardroom and it looked like that top image. How would that feel like? Because everybody's represented. Not because they're a woman or because they're represented. There's a voice that speaks of different experiences, brings a different perspective, brings a different kind of initiative, and that can only be a competitive edge to any business. It's not the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Because we know that diverse teams outperform those that are not by 35%. 35%, you cannot ignore that fact. But we still, every single day, have boardrooms that look like that. Unfortunately, the FTSE 100 still represents that. So we need to start changing the way that we recruit, the way that we look at our leaders as business leaders. We need to start challenging ourselves. What do our boardrooms look like? What do the people in power look like? So that when we start looking at the next generation, are we reflecting society? I hear from so many recruitment agencies, and I've been on the other side where I've been a client and I've had recruiters on my PSL, and I'd always challenge them. Why am I getting the same kind of people on the short list of candidates that you supply me? And I'd hear the same excuse over and over again: we just can't find the talent. There's not enough women out there. There's not enough people from an LGBT background out there. There's not enough people with disability there. And I say that's a very lazy excuse because I know they're out there. And I know they're out there because every single day I meet these people. We all know these people. We are these people. So you cannot say that they do not exist, because to me that is such a lazy excuse. But as recruiters, we're so drilled in the commerciality of what we do in the recruitment. It's all about who's going to make that placement first. It's all about, I want to get that candidate in there before that next person does. So we don't actually think outside the box about processes where we can actually go out and try and give our clients something different, not always give them the same type of people over and over again. You know, it's about having the courage to challenge our hiring managers and say, well, why do you want people that come from that university versus somebody who maybe went to a different kind of university? Why is that? If they got a first and that person got a first, does that mean that they're any less qualified to do this job? These are the type of things we need to start challenging our hiring managers for us to start to change the society that we live in, so it starts to look and feel like the world that we all live in. So, when people say to me, it's impossible, it can't be done, you can't find people, there's not enough women in tech, there's not enough women in STEM, I say impossible is nothing. And this is one of the most powerful statements I've ever come across, and I live by it every single day, because to me, impossible is nothing. You know, we have to challenge, we have to think differently for us to see the difference that we want to be. And if we want to see a better world, we have to be part of the world that we want to see. We have to be part of that solution. We can't wait for just HR to fix that. We can't wait for the leaders to fix that. We all have to be part of that solution. Diversity isn't just a problem that just needs a quick fix so we can move on to the next thing. It's the way in which the world we live in is moving towards. It's about having everybody involved in that conversation, irrelevant of what your gender is, what your race is, what your age is, what your nationality is, what your sexual orientation is. This is about all of us and trying to create a society where all of us can be our true selves and can bring our best selves to work every single day. Thank you.